Energy maturity. Allow me to whisper for this video, please. Being in public. Allow me to tap in to some type of Zen, some type of praying mantis, some type of caterpillar, some type of Clifford the Big Red Dog, some type of, Willy Wonka, or some type of that guy from Dexter's Laboratory where he has a heart. He's this big white like bear hybrid. He's like a hybrid with like a pig and a bear, and he has white fur and he has like this heart, and it's like a rainbow heart, and like when people are on that heart, he bakes them or he warms them up. He emotionally bakes them. So, and emotionally bake, we could find that positively and constructively in any moment, finding the good in things, like, being cultivated from a grounded, good attitude to multiply the good attitude by focusing and encouraging that good attitude. Because you could really ask on an energetic, mature level what is happening, just standardly, You don't have to get too heady with it. You don't have to get too complex with it. Nice and chill and balanced, nice and chill and balanced. Before anything you could think of. That's the thing right there. And that's cool that you could get a whiff of it within this moment, but we're not necessarily like multiplying it to the field so that could come back to us in our lived shared reality on a secret neutral level. So targeting it, the in between of the bad mood and the good mood, sitting in between, because once you lean and polarize thriving for the good mood, there's this energy shadow of a bad mood that could like just be in that duality. So it's practicing being in the middle of it, and then being with both of them, transforming both of them. But the energy maturity of this conversation is what is happening generally, standardly, on the most simplest level, and like recognizing all the complexities of it all. What is happening here with anything, it's simply a matter of something of a process, a unique process per the particular context and discussion subject you're talking about. So everything is a process, and I'm emphasizing it within this context because we're not necessarily understanding it. It's a matter, and after the yin post level of the process is an attempt to uniquely focus attention with the understanding of the process that you're going through, because everything that you could think of is a process, no matter what. Good, bad, emotional, not emotional, spiritual woo-woo shit, spiritual or like, industry shit, doing events and shit. It's all a process. And let me shout out this cherry drink, because there's some professional snackers out here, There's some people who are snacking hard these days. Hard. Do you see all these new foods? There's like purple hamburgers these days. Hard ass mother flipping jibbing snackers. So that's an example of in between. We're focusing on a good thing, but we're seeing the reality of a casual process. How like there's just like any, casual discrepancy of a minor corruption or detriment energy, a minor detriment energy of like people put their emotions into other things momentarily. Like people interfuse their aura with the food that they're making, but that's not what this topic is about. It's about being in between the understanding and the process of things. Because if you were to ask yourself and have the will and the encouragement with yourself to understand the process that we're going through, it's a very particular process with whatever you're talking about. So you have to ask yourselves, what am I talking about? Why am I focusing on the things that I'm focusing on? And regardless of my level of awareness, what more could be happening on so many different infinite levels, but that's still being simplified, And within that simplicity of all the infinite levels from, relatable to where you're at, whether that's GMO distraction or the real blissful opposite, purifying and cleansing mind, body, and soul, and creating a self-sustainable emotional security for yourself, eventually physical security and spiritual magical security eventually, right, within the game. And because you don't necessarily know the future, you know, anybody can criticize me, but they're still on their survival shit. So who the fuck is anybody to really fucking judge me, respectively? So it's like, so I'm trying to say we're all in the same boat. So the best mature thing of energy we could do is, all we could really do is help one another. But before we could help anybody else, we have to help ourselves. I understand that, you know. But not to drift off the topic, is if you were to standardly ask what is happening, all that which is happening it's a process. And within that process, with whatever is happening and clicking or connecting or inserting and like doing the ins and outs and the outs and ins, because there are things changing, and we could get specific with that with, you know, with clarity or not, you know, or not, or somewhere casually curious and in between that. Because once you dive deep into something passionately, if you're passionate about whatever you do, then that should be an endless journey for you, you know, an endless journey. Because like whatever you're passionate about, like you, regardless of what you're passionate about, you would want to try to figure out how you could keep doing that, you know, keep doing that forever. And that's why I'm here to neutrally represent how I could, like, more or less gradually do that for myself, understand the process and understand the real specificalities within the mechanics of this freaking life. And within that, with whatever's like activating within just the basic overall level of transition of this planet receiving new, different, collective and individuated other lights and beings influencing us, that whole process of transition is catalyzing us and provoking us and encouraging us, if we see with our awareness, to actually be alone. Because once we're alone, we could then harmonize ourselves with the real natural world, and the natural world needs us to know who we are as a natural being. And if the natural world isn't responded and interacting with our natural selves, then the natural world is going to be hidden from us. It's gonna go over us and through us based on our artificial character, quote unquote neutral artificial character. The artificial character is meaning all these society codes telling you what to be, and within that, the natural world is going to be the natural world is like, it's not going to be like necessarily really there available. It's not going to be a working relationship, you know, because that's like the best thing you could have, a working relationship with the natural world. And since there's a process, a gradual process within the world of how we're going to something of a natural world, that whole process of spiritual mechanics within you, spiritual individuation, sometimes the world will force you to be alone, and that's not good and that's not bad. And the human itself will feel different things, and that's okay. Let it pass, let it move through you, you know, because we could be feeling different things within the process of wherever we're at right now. So however we're uniquely, you know, ourselves moving towards our future, you know, us focusing on ourselves in a relative future way within a modern way. Because sometimes life brings you to solitude. It isolates you on a neutral way, and it's not that life or reality is punishing you. It's just sometimes life will isolate you, and within that isolation, the natural world is calling you. Once you're being asked to be isolated, a natural spiritual world is trying to pull you ever so gradually, and the real thing that's torn in between two worlds, the real thing that's torn in between two worlds is you. Shout out to the 1996 Spider-Man cartoon where Peter Parker is shaking hands with Carnage and Venom, or Carnage and I think Spider-Man, and he's trapped in between two worlds. He's trapped in between, you know, something of the you know, you can interpret it however you want, but from my simplification is, it's the energy world, and you don't necessarily have to call it spiritual or natural, but you can. And then it's the society of its big extreme dualities and polarities of the good and bad, and it's how you're reacting and relating with that which will ultimately measure and count the longevity and how you're staying, how long you will stay in the material world, how long you will stay in the natural world, and you doing them both simultaneously on different levels of percentages, ratios. But like what's more suppressed is the natural world. And the time that we're in right now, we're going through a process where you could be isolated, not for good, not for bad. And within that isolation process, the process could make us more or less focus with intelligence or no intelligence of the themes of life, the dread of life, you know, the everything of life, everything negative, quote unquote negative, everything like that's not necessarily like, you know, higher octave, you know, like it's the total opposite of higher octave, you know, just on a standard energy level. And within that level, let's get that let's get those 3D cameras. But within that energy level, we have a relationship with fear, and we have a relationship, and we could have a relationship with like dread, and we could like respectively, you know, because the human is reacting. It's trying to understand why the world, the bigger picture world, is isolating itself. The isolation is a good thing because it's taking you back to your natural self. So when you feel things like confusion, when you feel things like dread and all these things, it's because there's a lack of intelligence. And the real guru exemplifies the exalted intelligence, the exalted passion within the wholeness, because the fire is coming first and everything else is post-fire. So once everything else is lined up, then the passion is the final tier. It's kind of like, you know, the Chinese philosophy is like, get your work straight first, get your discipline with what you have, mind you, because not everyone starts off at the same foot race. So it's a matter of understanding, and it's a matter of real fucking intellect being shared and fucking expressed and actually used and actually having a purpose, rather than, oh, these webinars are saying, oh, like, we're looking for this, but it's not going to please our, like, demon masters, so we're just kind of shove it off and, like, do whatever, like, respectively in a neutral way, you know? It's not going to please them, so it's like we're not going to necessarily be aligned with what we're professing that we're saying we're doing, but that's a different tangent. I'm just trying to say it's, like, to simplify what anything is, it's just a process, and within that process, there's different dualities of emotions, and there's different dualities of different conscious philosophies that have created mental, societal, you know, psychological, different things, but the same thing, organizations that we're a part of, not for good, not for bad, not for better, not for worse, just a part of the evolution. And now the time that we're in, it's asking you to redefine who the fuck you are, redefining yourself, not anybody else. Like, just minus and neutralize everybody else's influence for once, and actually define and actually find out who you are on a gradual level. Because within the process of isolation, then the dread will dissipate, then the fear, like all of this will like it won't even be a thing. Because I understand, like, what could be going on for the youth casually, just a casual level, well, just life dread. And if your teachers, your parents, your influencers are not teaching them how to equalize that, then they're not necessarily optimal teachers, because they're still struggling with it, and they're in just a neutral way. There's just a lack of intelligence in a neutral way. There's just a theme of confusion in a neutral way because of what they're overall subscribing to on a material level, to a forgotten real fucking spiritual level, most respectively. Because I'm like empathic to like what other people could feel, you know? So it's about understanding what, with what I'm just saying, how everything is a process, how we have to really put ourselves in a state of listening and understanding to actually, you know, whatever questions we have, we could ask to ourselves so we could clear out more confusion, because we have a relationship with fear on a hidden surface level that's just like a part of our character, and we don't even know it. We don't even know that. But it's evident because that's the thing that's ultimately like kind of holding us back, and within that it's developing everything else from that. So one of the points of this video was just kind of like once recognizing like, you know when certain transitions and acts happen, it doesn't have to be like that. And if it is like that, whatever dread you're caught up in as you're growing up through life and life's dread, there is a transmutable solution. But due to like where we're at, based on our level of confusion and our lack of awareness and intelligence, we won't have the insight to apply how to transform it, so we'll be stuck in an emotion. But the great work is on a planetary level. For a real heaven on earth to be created, you have to master the collective emotional field. Obviously obvious, not so obvious, but people are not necessarily like, my little pet peeve is like, people are just like, they're just not about what they say, you know. And there's a different way I wanted to word that, you know. So it's like but it's like a goal. It seems like it's like on a real standard measurable level, it's an objective, that's an idea that's actually more or less entertained and being worked with on its own different processes and, you know, multidimensional like realms of how that was even conceived, you know, the possible idea that it's still an objective far away from us, you know. It's still something, an idea. So the objectives, they're just kind of like the starting points, and like where we're at every day is a new starting point. So I just wanted to like share that with y'all, and shout out to everybody in every country. May you find the balance, may you find the positive transformation, may you take out the corruption in your country, you know, because we're all like, only the best of us will survive on a neutral mathematic future level, on a future mathematical neutral level, and that's self-evident. But people don't have the raw truth, the raw intelligence to actually like be brave enough to actually like, you know, do what needs to be done. Because if it's not just lost rhetoric, then there would be more action. But I'm not saying that there isn't, though, you know. I'm still gonna like, you know, put my hats off and respects to like, you know, those energies that are happening, that I don't have that specific awareness, but I can feel what's happening, because there's a movement for constructive change. So that's what we're keeping alive, you know. That's what we're keeping alive. But like it's like just the relationship of all the other things. It could be said that it comes from a deep-rooted fear or not. Because like I might have a different relationship with jealousy just on a standard casual level. What does that do? It makes me not want to share other people's positive messages. But we all have that thought type within us. But that doesn't necessarily have to be a part of us. As we recognize it, it goes through us more easily, you know? So it's like, you know, so within that, it's a whole unique theme that we're not taking into account of. Because once you have a relationship with jealousy, it's like we're sharing toxic shit rather than celebrating people's like breakthroughs and support that ironically could help them and is helping them. It's like webinars, we could do this for you, but we're not going to do that for you because these leaders saying it's going against their policy, but we're still going to observe with our little vessel capacity that we can within the capacity of our capacitance, and we're still going to quote unquote get our butterfly net out and suck up all this fucking free energy. That's not how the spiritual mechanics work, because we're on the material level, we're binding ourselves to different material contracts. So I'm glad that I get to like kind of like pencilize the points, the prince, and fucking live it, embody it, because within the message is the trajectory to influence the wind coming from the wind action for other constructive wind actions to be harmonized and congruent. So this is like, I'm like literally measurably mathematically the best spiritual teacher in the galaxy, most hyper respectively. But obviously may I be modest as ever, and may we work with God's wind, God's fire, God's earth, and God's water. Have the best life ever.